Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of the Efficiency Equation podcast. And we are back with the topic of AI because without a doubt, it's been the most heated and burning topic of 2024. And it's probably going to be the hottest topic going into 2025 as well. And we've already covered bits and pieces of AI and we talked about a UNS chatbot. But today we don't have Eugene with us. So you've got Konstantin and myself. So how you doing, Konstantin?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. So this time, Konstantin and I are gonna be speaking specifically about QC managers, and we're gonna be diving into the 5 things that every QC manager must know when it comes to connected AI chatbots. The reason we want to talk about these things is because on the one hand, there's a bunch of confusion about what a chatbot is, what an agent is. And so we've got to set the record straight with defining a couple of these terms. And then we're going to take the QC manager context and see what it is that you need to know, what it is that you need to be aware of. And we're hopefully going to give you a hand in planning out your systems because sooner rather than later, you're going to be thinking about how AI bots and agents can supplement what you do and help you get better results. So, Konstantin, without further ado, after this longish intro, please tell us what the 5 things are that we're going to be discussing today.
So the 5 things every QC manager needs to know about the connected AI chatbots are: 1, definitions. You need to know what people are talking about when they mention AI chatbots, copilots, AI agents, AI workflows, and what the heck reactive or proactive agent means. Just general terms so that you don't get duped the next time you talk to somebody. Number 2, every QC manager wants to know that this AI technology is safe to use. So we will talk about safe ways and unsafe ways to use it and what it all means for your data privacy. Number 3, access to real-time data. The new modern chatbots have access to the real-time data, have those capabilities, and you need to be aware of the art of the possible. What is possible? This is very big and very exciting, and the new technology can bring in a lot of efficiency. So we'll talk about that. Number 4, standard operating procedures. So all quality managers worry about compliance and adherence to the standard operating procedures. So you need to understand what in this world is lacking and what is possible and what are some of the next steps that you can take to actually get the benefits of the new technology. And number 5, your data must be digital. So I can't stress this enough. If you have, and I would say that 90% of quality managers in American manufacturing companies know at least 1 or 2 processes that are still handled on paper or in Excel. If you know about those processes, think about it. If the data that you capture regularly is captured on a piece of paper on a clipboard, the chatbot cannot know about it. If AI doesn't know about it, it cannot help you with it. It's as simple as that. So we all can think of the different departments that we work with where there may be a bunch of stuff in software systems and a little bit here and there that's still tracked off somewhere to the side on paper. So it's important to make sure that whatever you are curious about in terms of the capabilities of the chatbots, it is digitized. You must go digital. And quality managers are some of the best change agents when it comes to pushing for digital transformation.
Great. Okay, super excited. Let me just quickly recap, Konstantin. So number 1, we need definitions to be on the same page so that we all talk about the same thing. Number 2, privacy and safety. Number 3, access to real-time data. Number 4, SOPs, your standard operating procedures, and the notion that your data must be digital. Okay, so these are the 5 things. Take it away with number 1. What are some of the key terms that we need to get on the same page about?
I'll say it again. Every QC manager needs to know what it means when they see any kind of discussion about AI chatbots or AI agents or workflows or copilots. So I'll start with the first one. What are AI chatbots? And I'm not going to go into too much detail, but you need to understand at a high level what this is. By definition, AI chatbot is something where you're chatting with an AI, with the large language model. You're not chatting with your coworker. It's not the Google Hangouts. It's a conversation you're having with artificial intelligence, the large language model. It could be a conversation with a product from OpenAI. It could be Anthropic's Claude product. It doesn't matter. It could be Google Gemini. So you're having a conversation with AI. That's number one. Now, AI chatbots may include or may not include AI agents or AI workflows within them. So what does that mean? AI agent is something where there is a degree of autonomy, and these definitions are blurred between different companies, but usually there is a degree of autonomy, and it's a program pretty much that will do interactions with AI, with a large language model for you. For example, you ask to write some kind of document and you give it some kind of goals that this document must be polished, must adhere to different rules. And so under the hood, there is this program that will ask the AI to produce this document. The first time it produces it, it's okay, but not great. And so there is this algorithm that will ask it to refine this based on what your criteria were. And so this is more repetitive, and it usually takes, through these iterations, it takes more time. So the thing for QC managers to understand is when you're dealing with AI agents, you should not, most of the time, should not expect the same performance as you would when you're talking to a live person, because it takes time to go create an output of some sort and then refine it and come back. And sometimes AI agents do this multiple times. So that's what it means when we're talking about AI agents. There's something in the background, some kind of program that does iterative work for you. AI workflows are very similar. So when people talk about workflows, they're very similar to AI agents. The difference is in the workflow, what steps that program takes, that is predetermined, it's prescribed by people. And you know that whenever that workflow is launched, it's going to do 1, 2, 3, and then it's going to give you the output. With the AI agent, you actually don't know if it's going to take 3 steps to produce an output or if it's going to take 10 steps to produce an output, because it's going to evaluate the output, and if it sees that it's not good enough, it's going to keep going. That's why these things take a little bit longer than what is expected in a normal human conversation. So workflows take longer, but they're predictable. AI agents take longer and they're less predictable than workflows. That's the difference. Now, when you hear the term copilot, what is a copilot? Because that word has been thrown around a lot lately. Usually, a copilot is just a chatbot, an AI chatbot. But what you will notice when you look at this among the products that are available out there on the market right now is that the copilots are typically the chatbots that have access to static knowledge base. So think of all the different company documents, the PDFs that you could have preloaded into this chatbot, and it can give you summaries of them. Static, it doesn't change. And when you hear a copilot, 90% or 99% of them are those types of chatbots that don't interact with anything in real time. However, there are exceptions to that, and we will talk about those exceptions later. But I just want you to get that mindset. You hear a copilot, usually means it talks to static data. Now, reactive and proactive bots and agents. You will hear people saying, well, if it's reactive or passive, meaning a person must engage the chatbot to ask it a question. This is yesterday's news, but there are these new creations now where a bot is actually monitoring what you do or some kind of process, and then it can engage you in the conversation when it sees a problem. I'm just here to tell you, do not worry about this, reactive versus proactive, because you will then find out that some of the AI chatbots actually don't appear like they are actively monitoring anything, but they indeed are monitoring information in real time, and they're able to start a conversation with you if necessary. So don't get hung up and don't get duped by people who tell you, well, this thing is proactive and that thing is reactive, so don't pay attention to that. This is all noise. So my takeaway here for you is that you should familiarize yourself with these terms and know that just the general term of AI chatbot may include all of this or just the bare minimum, where you ask a question, you get a simple answer. So do not get hung up on the technicalities of whether it has an agent built in or it doesn't. It doesn't matter to you necessarily. What matters to you is whether this technology addresses your pain points and solves your problem for whatever it is you're dealing with. And then once you learn these terms, become the agent of change. Spread the word, educate the others.
Awesome. Okay, so what do we need to know about AI technology, privacy, and safety? That's the second big item on the agenda.
Yes, this one actually comes from real feedback from a director of quality that I engaged with. And here's the takeaway. Every QC manager worries about compliance and safety and making sure that their data, the company data, is kept private. And whenever you talk about AI, they worry about making sure that their private data is not compromised. So that's like a number one concern. For that particular reason, I want to point out to all the QC managers that there is a safe way to handle the data with AI technology, and there is the unsafe way. Whenever you deal with ChatGPT or any kind of online chatbots that are for public consumption, you know that if your employees put in something in the chat, everything is recorded, and the terms and conditions usually say that they are allowed, those companies are allowed to train their models on the data that you put in. So this is still the same, nothing has changed, and this is the unsafe way, I want to say. So just keep in mind, if you have an employee with sensitive data and they want to get some help with answering a question about that data or creating some kind of document, if they're using one of these public websites with AI technology and they copy and paste sensitive information in there, now the models are going to get trained potentially on your proprietary data, and you don't want that. If you have to do that kind of work, then your people need to be told to scrub the data first, cut out or replace all the sensitive information, then ask the question through that public website. Then once you get your response, you may have to replace whatever the general placeholders are again. So usually this data transformation happens twice.
Which is, let's be honest, it's unrealistic. It's something that you can't monitor. It's a pain in the ass.
Yes.
Nobody's going to be doing it on a regular basis. And again, you lose control.
Exactly. So it's very hard to control when people do it, when they don't do it. But most of these public sites actually have it in their terms and conditions. So that's the unsafe way. The safe way is when you engage a third-party service with a chatbot that has different features. There are different chatbots, but usually if they are configured correctly, what they do is they may be engaging with the same large language models from OpenAI or OpenAI model hosted in Microsoft Azure or Google Gemini model or Anthropic Claude. But what they do is they engage with them through a separate channel on the back end, through the API, and they are under different terms and conditions than you. So when it is a business doing this as a service on the back end, then these same companies guarantee to these businesses that their data is kept private. Their requests are kept private, and they're not logging them, and they're not training their models on them. So there is a big distinction. So if you are a quality manager thinking about this, you just need to understand that in the safe way, when you're subscribing to a chatbot service or you're buying a chatbot of sorts, it is going to be safe. It is going to be no more or less safe than any normal cloud service that you pay for today. There's a lot of people using Office 365 in the cloud, and you're reading your emails that way. Or people think about Gmail when you go to Gmail online. You're interacting with a system that's out there somewhere. So what I'm saying is, if the chatbot is a third-party service that actually doesn't use these public websites directly, but goes through the backend channel, then your data is kept private. It's important to understand. So whenever you talk to service providers with the chatbots, just make sure that it's that way and they're not just giving you access to the ChatGPT website, which normally they wouldn't. So this is not a concern. It's no more or less safe than you using your Office 365 or Gmail in the cloud, all right? I want to make sure with my call to action here, it's that you as quality managers go out there and educate the others that you've been using probably in every company to some extent services in the cloud already. And properly configured AI chatbots are no different. Educate the people, spread the word.
The third item on the agenda is the access to real-time data. What do quality control managers need to know about this, Konstantin?
This is a big one. So this is probably the most important positive topic of all the 5 things we're talking about today, because this is where the innovation shines really, and people understand what new things are now possible. So every QC manager will be happy to know that AI chatbots in general now have the capability to access your data in real time if you configure it to do it that way, right? Think about this. What are some of the implications? So you have quality labs, and lab technicians are able to ask chatbots questions about the results that they're getting on the quality samples. It could be quality samples that are being tested right this minute, or it could be samples that have been approved for the products in the manufacturing plant, and you can ask questions about what is the iodine value, what is the free facet acid value, like what are the trends in these things. It's amazing because if you think about what the same lab technicians would have had to do before, they would have to look all that up. So looking up stuff takes time. Some lab technicians may be very technically savvy and they know what's other screens to go to find this information, but even them, it would take them time to get there. But when you ask the chatbot, it can pull up that information in real time. And from what I've seen, this is with conversational, like human conversation-like performance. So the chatbot might take a couple of seconds, but it will give you the information that you're looking for, right? And that way, the lab technicians can find issues in whatever they're studying, whatever they're analyzing, much faster. So think about production operators. The production operators can also work in accordance with the recipe. And if the recipe is not just a prescribed set of ingredients to include in production, but also includes production steps, sequences of steps. This is very exciting because now the chatbot can assist the operator and tell him or her that you're on this step, the next step is this is what you need to do. So this helps a lot with training, and I'm sure quality managers are thinking about training their staff all the time. And when you think about bigger picture things like right first time metric, you are now able to ask the chatbot, what is my right first time trending like right now on that production line? So when you think about the manufacturing world, this is very important because you don't have to go pull up the dashboard module, find the right way to filter the data, get to your thing. By that time, you might have to be in a different meeting talking to somebody. So if you have free time in between your calls or meetings, you can just ask the chatbot about the current state of your production facility in terms of quality. So that's very, very exciting. And my call to action on this one would be that you need to familiarize yourself with the art of the possible. One way to do this is to go to the ProveIt conference, ProveIt 2025, that's taking place in February in Dallas, Texas. Learn more about this. One other thing I'll add is that the chatbots need to be integrated with systems to be able to provide you this information. If they're not integrated with anything, they don't know anything, right? And so one of the things to look for is whether the chatbot can actually integrate with other systems by means of a unified namespace. So you'll hear more about unified namespace. Why is that important? That's important because any such chatbot or any such technology that does this will save your company time and money in integrating with other data sources and with other data systems. So if you're thinking you're already using some systems at your company today, and all you need is to get this chatbot to know about that data, if you get the chatbot that talks to the unified namespace, that will be the faster, the easier route to get all that data from all the different nodes and to be able to access it in real time. So this is important, and I would encourage all of you to look up this conference that's coming up because there will be conversations about unified namespace and chatbots that give you that specific information.
Awesome. Okay. Item number 4 is a 100-year-old topic, at least 100 years old, and super interested to see how that ties into the topic of quality control and AI, namely standard operating procedures. What is the deal with SOPs?
Every QC manager worries about compliance and procedures. However, most companies have different degrees of detail in their SOPs, and there's a lot of SOPs that lack the necessary detail or a lot of SOPs that don't exist. And so a good example may be that when I go to a food processing facility and I ask them for SOPs, they produce very detailed SOPs for some production lines, but one-pagers for some other production lines, or say that for this one, we don't have an SOP. That actually exists in the 21st century. Now, think about what that means for the QC managers and their compliance concerns. If you want to use new technology and reap the benefits of it, you need to fill those gaps. So whenever there is something on paper, but it's usually rare, usually it's in the heads of your expert operators, you need to make sure that you get them to write down all this information, to create the documentation. Once the documentation is created, now it can be loaded into the chatbot technology so that the chatbots can help. How do they help? This is very, very important. I've seen personally production operators get very excited about this. So think about this scenario. A production operator sees that something is wrong on the production line in front of them. They're not sure what is causing the problem, but they're seeing some anomaly. At this point, they know what worries them. They don't know the root cause, and they have options. They can go ask their neighbor, another operator, hey, do you know what that is? Or they can go and look for that big binder where there is paper SOP, flip the pages, find the troubleshooting section, see if that troubleshooting section has anything valuable in it, and then take action from there. Or they might not be a binder, and then they have to scratch their head and guess as to what they need to do. Now, in this scenario where you have this documented and the chatbot has this information, this knowledge base preloaded, what's going to happen is the operator is going to ask, what do I do with this? How do I troubleshoot this? And then the chatbot, within seconds, gives you the response that is concise and pertinent just to your situation. So this, I can't stress enough the importance of this, because the operators love it when they don't have to look at the binder, flip through the pages, and find the thing that maybe is important to them, maybe it's not. So that is very important. But for you as quality managers to be able to have that across the board, you need to go back, do the gap analysis, find all those areas where the documentation is missing, get the local experts to create that documentation. Once you have it, it doesn't matter whether it's in any particular document type, such as Microsoft Word, or if it's in PDF or whatever. It doesn't matter. Once you have it, as long as people understand what it says, then that information can be loaded into the chatbot's knowledge base. And there are different ways to do it. Even if you have tabular data, it can be done. But this is important. You need to go back, check where the gaps are, and get aggressive about closing the gaps. I can't stress it enough. You have to get aggressive about documenting what's undocumented right now in your manufacturing facilities. That way, you can join everybody else who's reaping the benefits of this new AI technology.
Love it. I can see you're just a bit passionate about this topic.
I've seen a bunch of scenarios where there is no documentation. Again, people continue to operate this way because they think, well, this guy Joe has been there for 30 years and he has it in his head and he knows how this thing works. And he's not quitting tomorrow, or so we hope. So what's another day, right? And then eventually Joe says, I'm sick and I can't come into work anymore. And now people have lost that knowledge. So it's very important to get aggressive about documenting stuff. Now, after it's documented, that information can be preserved through the chatbots and made readily available so that people don't have to search for it.
All right. The fifth item that QC managers need to be super aware about is something that you've actually pre-teased with the previous four ones, and it is the notion that your data must be digital. Please tell us more about that.
Your data must be digital. Every QC manager needs to understand that they know, they might not readily admit it, but they know deep inside their heart that somewhere in their department or in their company, there are still processes that are run on paper or in Excel. Excel is this favorite thing of people. Some pretend that it's not paper. Well, it's kind of like paper on steroids, if you think about it, because your Excel files usually do not follow any strict naming guidelines and retention guidelines. And so they can get lost. They can get corrupt. Anything can happen, right? And the data that goes into Excel most of the time is not validated, because validation of data in Excel is difficult to maintain. So we know that. 90% of you listening probably just have people keying in something in Excel that does not get validated at all, right? So going back to Excel and paper, if you have that information captured as part of a regular process every day, let me give you an example. You have a QA technician walking the floor and they have the clipboard, and on the clipboard, they're checking things. So in a food processing facility, when it's like margarine production, they would be looking at the flake thickness and they check and say, yeah, in this production run right now, the flake thickness is good. But that's all on paper. The chatbot does not know what's on paper until that information is transferred. But if anybody transfers information from paper into the system, there are some companies that do that. That is not real-time information anymore. That information may be outdated and not so helpful. So now think about that same QA technician walking around with a tablet or a phone or Chromebook, whatever it is that is convenient for them. And they capture the information about that flake thickness in real time, and it goes and gets saved into the database. Now, if the chatbot is connected to that, that chatbot can actually give you insights about this, about what's going on. So this is very important. If you have information on paper, the modern technology does not know about it. If you have information in Excel, most of the time, the modern technology doesn't know about it because 99% of Excel data is not integrated with any other data sources such that as soon as you put something into Excel, it gets published to a database. Most people don't do that. It is doable, but it's cumbersome and difficult, so most people don't do it. And so I want you, the QC managers, to think about that your data must be digital. Take the example of sanitation records. You're coming into the lab, you need to know that the equipment has been cleaned. And you may want to ask a chatbot, oh, is this liquid chromatography equipment, is it clean? Is it ready for use? You won't know the answer to that until all your sanitation information is tracked digitally. So this is very big and very important. And because quality managers care about compliance and safety and standard operating procedures, they make good agents of change. Once you understand that data must be digital, you are in a good position to go talk to the management of the department, of the plant, of the company about your digital transformation strategy. There needs to be a push, and it usually works better when it comes from the ground up. And so push for going digital. Your data must be digital to be accessible by this new technology. Once it is digital, all your favorite projects or all your favorite types of data are now possible to get efficiencies in through the use of these AI chatbots. Whether it's sanitation records, training records, you have all sorts of compliance training for quality lab personnel, and you can just come into work and say, hey, who are my employees that are still lacking this kind of training? Who is behind on this? And the chatbot will tell you that. But for it to tell you that quickly, without you going anywhere, that information must be digital. So quality managers, let this be a wake-up call. There's a lot of you who know that we still have stuff on paper and in Excel, and we need to deal with that. Once you deal with that, you'll be set up for success with the 5 things that I just mentioned.
Awesome. Well, there was a lot in there. So we only talked about 5 things, but you went quite deep. So can you just give us a quick wrap up of these 5 items in the end?
If I had to meet a quality manager at the bar, I don't go to bars, but if I had to, you need to know at a high level about the definitions of what people are talking about so that you don't get confused between AI agents, AI chatbots. They all talk to large language model. And as long as somebody is talking about AI chatbots or copilots, you're in the right area. Do not let anybody fool you with what's hot and what's not hot, because it's not about what's in fashion right now. It's about what of those technologies apply to your specific use case, right? Number 2, there are quality managers worrying about privacy and data safety all the time whenever it comes to AI. So we talked about safe and unsafe ways to use this technology. If you're going with third-party chatbots that use secure connection, this is no less safe than using your favorite email clients in the cloud. Number 3, access to real-time data. This is very important. Check if the AI chatbot that you're curious about actually has any of those capabilities. Usually when it has the word copilot in it, it will not have access to real-time data, but there are some exceptions to that. So be mindful and check. Can this thing let me talk to my data in real time as it changes. So if I'm running any kind of lab and there are lab technicians working on something right now and I want to access the latest information, or if we are in a manufacturing facility and I want to know the quality status in that manufacturing facility, whether it's right first time metrics, or I want to drill into OEE, overall equipment effectiveness, which has a quality component, and I want to know if some production line is trending below where they should be in terms of quality. So all those things are possible with real-time access. I can't stress this enough. Check when you see these chatbots, check whether they have that capability, because access to real-time data will save you a lot of time. Number 4, standard operating procedures. We talked about this. A lot of companies have gaps in that area. There would be SOPs for some areas and nothing for others. And wherever there's nothing, the new technology can't help you with it. There needs to be this knowledge extracted from the heads of your select few experts who have 30 or 40 years of experience. Sit them down, ask them to write it down, pay them for it, and make sure that it's understandable what they write. And then that information can be converted into the knowledge base that the chatbot will help you with later. And it won't be lost. You won't have to do it again. So that's important. And number 5, all data must be digital. If it's on paper, the AI doesn't know about it. So you are the best people to be the change agents within your organization to push for going digital.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I think that's a wrap.
One thing, again, I want to recap about if you want to learn more, there will be this ProveIt 2025 conference in Dallas, Texas in February, and you will be able to go there and learn more about these types of chatbots that actually talk to your data in real time. So if you're interested in learning more information about that, just contact me. I may be able to provide discounted access to the show for end users, for manufacturers. So just connect with me and I will help you out.
Great. So if you can make it to ProveIt 2025, you'll meet Konstantin and Eugene, and you can just go even deeper on the topic. And as always, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will catch you in the next episode. Have a great day.
See you soon.